Snow whipped across the empty road as Daniel Miller stepped out of his car, his breath fogging in the freezing air. Then he saw her, a tiny girl in torn boots, standing by the prison gate, clutching a cracked pocket watch like it was life itself. Each tickless second cut through him. "Why are you here alone?" he asked. The girl looked up, her eyes shining with frost and tears. "I'm waiting for my daddy," she whispered. "He said when this watch ticks again, he'll come home." And Daniel's world stopped cold. If you want to know what happens next, stay with me until the end of the video. And if you still believe deep in your heart that God is always watching over you silently, arranging everything, then right now, leave a comment saying Amen below this video. Because who knows, at the very moment you write those words, a blessing may quietly enter your life. The morning was so cold, it seemed even the wind had frozen. Snow covered the benches outside the Illinois State Prison, turning everything into a silent sea of white. On one of those benches sat a little girl, no more than 7, her legs tucked under a worn grey coat 2 sizes too big. In her small hands she held a pocket watch, its glass cracked, the hands frozen at 4:17. She whispered something to it every few minutes, as if coaxing it back to life. A black car rolled up its tires, crunching the snow. From it stepped Daniel Miller, 42 polished shoes, long wool coat, the kind of man who carried the quiet heaviness of someone who'd lost too much and learned to smile anyway. He was here for a routine inspection meeting, or so he had told himself. But the moment he saw the girl, something inside him faltered. "Who are you waiting for, sweetheart?" he asked gently, voice barely louder than the snow. The girl looked up. Her cheeks were red from the cold, her lips trembling. "For my daddy," she said. "He told me, when this watch ticks again, he'll come home." Daniel's breath caught. His gaze dropped to the watch, the same kind his daughter used to play with. For a moment, he saw not the prison gates, but the hospital room from 10 years ago, the beeping monitor that had gone still, the time of death recorded at 4:17. He sank to one knee, snow soaking through his trousers. "May I see it?" he asked. She hesitated, then opened her palm. The watch gleamed faintly under the pale sun, a relic of love and waiting. Daniel smiled, though his voice broke when he whispered, "Maybe time stopped for both of us." The wind carried his words away, leaving only the sound of snowflakes falling between them, soft, endless, and unbearably quiet. The girl's name was Lily Brooks. That much Daniel learned only after an hour of silent waiting beside her, their breaths mingling in the cold like pale ghosts. When the guards changed shifts and the last visitor left, she was still there, stubborn, trembling, but unyielding. Daniel finally offered his scarf. "You'll catch a cold out here." Lily clutched the pocket watch tighter. "If I leave, he won't find me." Daniel looked toward the prison gates, now locked and lifeless. "Then we'll wait together," he said softly. No one should wait alone. It wasn't pity that made him say it, it was recognition. 10 years ago, he had waited too in a sterile hospital corridor for a door that never opened again. The silence then had sounded just like this snow. By the time the prison lights dimmed, Daniel had called his driver. He wrapped the sleeping child in his coat and carried her to the car. The pocket watch dangled loosely from her hand, its chain glinting in the dim headlights. Chicago glittered in the distance, but Daniel's penthouse felt colder than the prison yard. When they arrived, Sam Porter, his longtime housekeeper and friend, was already waiting at the door, tall, broad-shouldered, with the sharp gaze of someone who had once been a cop, and never quite forgot it. Sam frowned when he saw the small figure in Daniel's arms. "Who's the kid?" "Her name's Lily Daniel," replied. "She was sitting outside Menard Prison. Said her father's in there." Sam's voice dropped. "You brought her here. You know what that'll look like, right? Press gets wind of this. It's a storm waiting to happen." Daniel exhaled. "Let it come. She's not spending another night out in the cold." Sam muttered something under his breath, but fetched a blanket anyway. Old habits of obedience died hard. He watched Daniel settle the child on the couch, cover her gently, and place the cracked watch on the table. "You can't save everyone, Dan," Sam said finally. Daniel looked at the fireless hearth. "I'm not trying to save everyone, just one." The next morning, sunlight broke through the frost-covered windows, spilling across marble floors and sterile furniture. Lily stood near the kitchen doorway, watching everything with the wary curiosity of a stray animal. Sam was making coffee, grumbling as he burned toast. Daniel appeared, hair uncombed, holding 2 mugs of hot chocolate. "Morning, kiddo," he said. "How do you like your cocoa?" Lily blinked. "What's cocoa?" Daniel smiled faintly. "You'll see." She took the mug, carefully warming her hands on it before daring a sip. For a heartbeat she seemed to relax until she noticed her watch missing from the table. "Where is it?" she gasped. Daniel quickly handed it back. "Easy. I just cleaned the glass." Her eyes filled with panic. "Don't take it away. If I lose it, Daddy won't know where to find me." Daniel crouched down, meeting her frightened gaze. "He'll find you, Lily. Watchers don't decide that hearts do." For a moment, she just stared at him, searching his face for the lie she expected to find. But Daniel didn't flinch. He simply sat beside her, letting the silence speak for them both. Later that day, Sam pulled Daniel aside. "You're getting attached. I can see it." Daniel didn't deny it. "She reminds me of Emily." Sam's expression softened. He knew that name, the daughter who never made it past her 10th birthday. "You think helping this kid is going to fix what happened?" Daniel looked out the window, where snowflakes drifted past the skyline. "Maybe not. But it might fix me." Sam sighed. "Then you'd better be ready for the fallout. Taking in a convict's kid, you'll be crucified in the press." Daniel's lips curved in a wry smile. "Names are meant to protect someone who has none. Isn't that what you once told me?" Sam couldn't argue. He poured himself another cup of coffee instead. That evening, Daniel found Lily sitting by the window, the pocket watch open in her palm. The fire crackled beside her, reflecting off her pale skin. "Maybe tomorrow it will tick again," she said softly, not looking up. Daniel sat down across from her, the words echoing inside him like a prayer. "Maybe it will," he said. Behind them, Sam watched silently from the kitchen doorway. He wanted to tell Daniel that the world wouldn't forgive such tenderness, that it devours men who care too much. But then he saw the way Lily's shoulders had finally relaxed, the way Daniel's eyes had softened for the first time in years, and he couldn't bring himself to speak. Outside, snow kept falling, soft, relentless, and strangely forgiving. For 2 weeks, peace pretended to live inside Daniel's penthouse. Mornings were marked by the sound of Lily's laughter, echoing down the long hallway, a sound the place had not known for a decade. Sam pretended to complain about it, but Daniel caught him once, leaving an extra cookie on her plate when he thought no one was watching. The world outside, however, had begun to stir. It started with a photograph, a blurred shot of Daniel carrying Lily through the snow outside the prison. It surfaced online with a headline that twisted everything Millionaire uses convict's daughter to rebrand his image. Daniel saw it over breakfast, his coffee untouched, his jaw tightening as the TV anchors dissected his motives like vultures picking at bone. Unbelievable, Sam muttered. They're calling her a prop now. A damn prop. Daniel didn't reply. He turned off the television and looked toward Lily's room. She was sitting by the window again, tracing shapes on the frosted glass, humming to herself. She didn't know yet. By afternoon, the calls began. Journalists, old investors, board members. They all wanted one thing: distance. Daniel said Richard Lyle, chairman of the Miller Investment Group, over the phone. You've got to fix this. You're trending for the wrong reasons. People think you're exploiting a prisoner's child. I'm not fixing a damn thing, Daniel said, his voice calm but steel-edged. The girl stays. There was a pause. Then you're finished here. The line went dead. Sam stood silently by the door, arms crossed. You knew that was coming. Daniel nodded. Yes. I just didn't think it would hurt this much. That evening the first threat came. Lily had answered the house phone while Daniel was in the study. A man's voice hissed through the receiver, low and cruel. Tell your rich friend to stop digging if you want your daddy alive. When Daniel found her, the phone lay on the floor and she was curled up in the corner, clutching the pocket watch. Her small shoulders shook uncontrollably. He knelt beside her. Lily, what happened? Her lips trembled. Someone said, Daddy will die if you don't stop. Daniel's hands tightened into fists. No one's going to hurt him. I promise. But the watch, she whispered, holding it up. It's still not ticking. Does that mean he's not coming back? Daniel forced his voice to steady. It means the truth hasn't woken up yet. She didn't understand the words, but something in his tone made her nod. She pressed the watch to her chest and cried until sleep finally took her. Later that night, Sam poured 2 glasses of whiskey and handed one to Daniel. She's a kid, Dan. She doesn't need your crusade. She needs safety. Daniel stared at the amber liquid. You think I don't know that, but her father's innocent, Sam. I've seen the files. I worked with Evan Brooks years ago. He wasn't the kind of man to steal medical equipment. Someone set him up, Sam frowned. And you think Victor Harlow had something to do with it? I don't think, Daniel said quietly. I know. Sam set his glass down hard. Harlow's untouchable. He's got half the city in his pocket. Daniel's eyes lifted, calm but burning. Then it's time someone reached into that pocket and pulled the truth out. Days later, a meeting request arrived from Victor Harlow himself. They met in a private club overlooking the frozen lake. Harlow was all charm and champagne smiles. His words as smooth as his tailored suit. Daniel, he said, shaking his hand. Always dramatic, aren't you? Picking up stray children now, very on brand for redemption. Daniel didn't smile. Evan Brooks was your employee. You destroyed him. Destroyed? Harlow chuckled. He destroyed himself. You of all people should know guilt is contagious. Daniel leaned closer. If you didn't have something to hide, you wouldn't be calling me here. Harlow's grin thinned. You're playing a dangerous game, old friend. The public already doubts you. I can make that permanent. Daniel stood. Do what you must. I've already lost more than your lies can take. As he left, Harlow's voice followed him like a shadow. Careful, Daniel. Even the truth can kill you if you dig deep enough. By the time Daniel returned home, news crews were outside his building. Cameras flashed as he pushed past the crowd. Inside, Lily was sitting with Sam watching the television. The same photograph appeared again, this time edited cruelly captioned. She turned to Daniel, eyes wide and wet. "Why are they saying bad things about you? Did we do something wrong?" Daniel knelt beside her. "No, sweetheart. Sometimes people lie because the truth scares them," she sniffled. "Like monsters." He smiled faintly. "Exactly like monsters." Lily climbed into his lap, resting her head on his chest. "Will Daddy still find me?" Daniel looked at the silent watch on the table, its cracked face catching the light like a wound. "Yes," he whispered. "But first we have to wake time up." Outside, the city pulsed with noise and judgment, but inside, Daniel's resolve hardened. For the first time in 10 years, he wasn't afraid of losing. He was afraid of stopping. Winter deepened. Chicago turned grey, as if the sky itself was exhausted from holding secrets. Daniel spent most of his days behind closed doors, piecing together files and names that should have stayed buried. Sam was never far gruff restless, but loyal in the quiet way men like him were. The first clue came from a forgotten name on a payroll list, Thomas Keller, a maintenance worker who had vanished right after Evan Brooks's arrest. Daniel found him one night in a shabby bars on the south side, a place that smelled of stale beer and lost chances. "Thomas Keller?" Daniel asked as he sat down. The man looked up, eyes bloodshot, nervous. "Who's asking? Someone who wants the truth." Thomas laughed bitterly. "Truth doesn't pay bills, mister. Lies do." Daniel slid a folded check across the table. "Then let me pay for honesty." Thomas hesitated, then sighed. "Fine. Evan didn't steal those parts. I saw Harlow's men moving the crates at midnight. When I tried to tell the cops, they told me to shut up or disappear. So I did." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a flash drive. "There's footage. Security cam from that night. You didn't get it from me." Daniel nodded, heart pounding. He stood to leave, but Thomas caught his sleeve. "Careful, Miller. Harlow's not afraid to bury people twice." Back at the penthouse, Sam was waiting. When Daniel told him what he'd found, the older man didn't look surprised. "I knew it had to be something like that," Sam said quietly. "Victor's been buying people for years." Daniel placed the flash drive on the table. "You're sure we can trust this?" Sam nodded once. "I'll check it myself." But when he plugged it in, the footage froze halfway, corrupted, blurred by time. All they could see was a single frame, Evan Brooks loading a box into a truck, headlights cutting across his face. Daniel cursed under his breath. "It's not enough." Sam rubbed his temples. "Maybe not, but it's something." He looked at Daniel for a long moment before speaking again. "There's something I never told you." Daniel glanced up. "The night Emily died," Sam said, voice low, "I was on duty. I was supposed to check the surgical team's clearances. I missed one, the nurse who gave the wrong dosage. I filed the report late, and the hospital buried it before it reached the board. I've been living with that mistake ever since." Silence filled the room. Daniel didn't speak, didn't move. The fire crackled in the background, small and merciless. Finally, Daniel said softly, "You've carried that for 10 years. Sam nodded. "And I'm done running from it. That's why I'm helping you now. Maybe if I can fix this, maybe I'll sleep again." Daniel stared into the flames. "Then we fix it together." Lily entered the room just then, carrying a blanket almost too big for her. "Are you fighting?" she asked innocently. Sam forced a smile. "Not this time, kid." She climbed into Daniel's lap, curling against his chest. "You look sad." Daniel stroked her hair absently. Just tired. She tilted her head. When I feel tired, Daddy says to count the ticks, but my watch doesn't tick anymore. Daniel glanced at the pocket watch in her small hand, still silent, frozen at 4:17. Maybe it's waiting, he said. Sometimes time pauses when it's scared. She frowned. Scared of what? Of losing the people it loves. Her little brow furrowed as she thought about that. Then, maybe we can make it brave again. Daniel smiled, the ache in his chest softening. Maybe we can. Later that night, when Lily had gone to bed, Daniel found her drawing on a scrap of paper beside the fireplace. It was a picture of 3 figures, a man with glasses, a tall man with a beard, and a little girl between them holding a round object. That's you and Sam and me, she said proudly. We're a team. Daniel felt his throat tighten. A team, huh? Yeah, she said with certainty. Daddy says teams don't quit. He looked at the picture long after she'd gone to sleep. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel haunted. It felt like it was waiting for something good. The next day, Sam returned from a meeting with an old contact in Springfield, a retired guard from Menard Prison. He had something folded in his coat pocket, a stack of letters sealed but never sent. Found these in the warden's archives, Sam said, placing them on the towel. All written by Evan Brooks. They never let them through. Daniel opened one carefully. The handwriting was rough but steady. Dear Lily, if you ever read this, I want you to know I didn't take anything. Not from the company, not from anyone. But they took something from me time with you. I hope you're still waiting, sweetheart. Because I am too. Daniel swallowed hard. He never stopped writing. Sam nodded. And now he needs someone to speak for him. Daniel looked at the letters, the flash drive, the frozen watch on the table. Then that's what we'll do. He rose from his chair, resolve hardening like ice. Tomorrow, we wake the world up. Outside, the snow was lighter now, the kind that falls slowly, tenderly, as if the sky is afraid to hurt the earth. Inside the pocket watch on the table reflected the firelight, the cracked glass glowing faintly. For the first time in 10 years, Daniel didn't feel frozen. He felt ready. The courthouse in Springfield was older than it looked. Marble steps worn smooth by decades of footsteps and regret. Snow flurried outside as people gathered for the trial that had gripped the city, Evan Brooks versus the state of Illinois. Daniel stood near the back of the courtroom, hands clasped tightly, the flash drive in his pocket like a heartbeat. Lily sat beside him, wearing a navy coat that seemed too big for her, clutching her silent pocket watch. Sam stood behind them, a steady wall of quiet strength. When the judge entered, the air shifted. On the other side of the room sat Victor Harlow, flanked by lawyers and arrogance. His expression carried the calm of a man convinced he owned the truth. The prosecutor began confidently repeating the same narrative from 10 years ago: theft, betrayal, dishonor. But when Daniel's turn came, the silence was almost reverent. He walked to the stand, slowly meeting Harlow's gaze, without flinching. Your honor, he began, voice steady for years. I believed my wealth could buy peace. I was wrong. Some things can only be earned, not with money, but with courage. He inserted the flash drive. The screen flickered, then came to life. The footage was grainy but undeniable. 2 men in company uniforms loading crates after hours. The timestamp matched the night of Evan Brooks's arrest. And in the corner, half shadowed but clear, stood Victor Harlow signing off the shipment. Gasps filled the room. Harlow shot to his feet. This is fabricated. But Sam had anticipated the move. We traced the metadata, he said, handing the verification file to the clerk. It's authentic. Daniel continued, his voice softer now. Evan Brooks was framed to cover for a corporate theft. He lost 10 years of his life for another man's greed. Across the room, Evan, gaunt quiet, in a plain suit borrowed from the warden, raised his eyes toward Daniel. Their gazes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Gratitude, recognition. The judge pounded the gavel. Order in the court. But before she could continue, Lily stood. The room fell still. She stepped forward on trembling legs, the pocket watch gleaming in her hand. "Daddy," she said, voice breaking look. "It's moving again." Everyone turned. The cracked glass caught the light, and behind it, the second hand twitched once, twice, then began to tick, 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 tick. The sound echoed through the courtroom like a heartbeat restarting after a long silence. Evan covered his face with his hands, sobbing quietly. Daniel lowered his head, eyes burning. Sam turned away, pretending to wipe something from his eye. The judge spoke, her voice steady but gentler now. "The court finds sufficient grounds to reopen the case. Mr. Harlow, you are hereby ordered into custody pending investigation." Cameras flashed. Reporters whispered, but Daniel didn't hear any of it. He was watching the small figure in front of him, Lily holding that stubborn watch, as if it had always known this moment would come. He knelt and opened his arms. Lily ran to him, her tears warm against his coat. "See," she whispered. "I told you it would tick again." Daniel smiled through the ache in his throat. "You did, sweetheart. You did." Evan approached slowly, his face pale with disbelief. For a long moment, the three of them simply stood there, a man who had lost a child who had waited, and another who had finally learned how to love again. The snow outside had stopped falling. Light streamed through the courthouse windows, catching dust and tears in equal measure. Somewhere deep inside the silence, time began to move again. The morning after the verdict, Springfield was washed in gold. The snow had melted just enough to reveal the wet cobblestones beneath, glistening like new promises. Evan Brooks stepped out of the courthouse in a borrowed coat, breathing air that felt too sharp and too real. 10 years behind bars had taught him that freedom wasn't loud. It was quiet, like the first tick of a clock that had long been still. Beside him walked Daniel, and between them, small and radiant, was Lily. She held both their hands, her pocket watch dangling loosely, ticking with quiet defiance. Reporters called out questions, but Daniel didn't answer. For once, he didn't owe the world an explanation. The only truth that mattered was the warmth of the child's hand in his, and the way Evan looked at him, not with resentment, but with gratitude. At the foot of the courthouse steps, Lily stopped. "Can we go home now?" she asked softly. Evan looked at Daniel. "You've already given her more than I could Miller. You gave her hope when I couldn't even write her a letter." Daniel shook his head. "She gave me something too, a reason to start living again." Evan smiled faintly. "Then maybe we both owe her." Lily looked between them, puzzled. "Does that mean we're all on the same team?" Daniel laughed quietly, the sound unfamiliar but welcome. "Yes, sweetheart. The same team." They started walking, their shadows stretching long in the winter sun. Behind them, the courthouse clock struck the hour clear, resonant, and perfectly on time. That Sunday, Lily placed her pocket watch on the windowsill of Daniel's penthouse. Morning light streamed through the cracked glass, scattering soft rainbows across the floor. The ticking was steady now, a heartbeat that filled the silence where grief used to live. Daniel stood in the doorway watching her. "What are you doing, kiddo?" She smiled without turning around. "Just making sure it keeps going." He nodded slowly. "It will. As long as someone listens." She turned then, her smile small but sure. "Then we'll listen together." Outside, Chicago shimmered under a pale winter sun. The city didn't know, or maybe it didn't care, that justice had found its way back into one small corner of the world. But inside that apartment, 3 people who had once been strangers were learning how to be a family. And somewhere in the soft rhythm of that old pocket watch, time, fragile, stubborn, beautiful time, had finally started again. Today's story comes to an end, but its echo still lingers in the heart. What do you think? Give us a score from 1 to 10, and feel free to share a few words in the comments. Every voice here is valued and heard. Before you go, let me ask you gently, are you doing okay today? If your heart feels heavy, let this place be a quiet corner where you can share and find comfort. See you again in the next bedtime story, where love and hope remind us that no matter how dark the night may seem, kindness will always prevail.